Welcome to In the Zone with Anthony on a Wednesday, January the 24th, a day that will always be special to me because on this day in 1934, little old town Redbird, Oklahoma, a man was born. November 24th, he accepted his wings and flew off. November 24th, 2008, that is. That would be my dad, so a happy heavenly birthday wish to my dad. It so happens I'm doing a podcast on the day that would be his birthday, January 24th, 1934. What a man he was. Hope I'm making him proud. I know this is something he probably never envisioned me doing, talking to people from basically around the globe, because I don't know who's listening and where they're listening from. But wherever you're listening from, I simply want to just say thank you for your listenership. So everybody know the news, and I'm going to start talking about that because there's a guy who also has connections to where I'm from, played his high school basketball at Wichita East High. He's a Blue Ace. He went on, played college ball. I'm pretty sure he spent some time overseas playing professional ball. Then he's been working in the NBA. I know he worked extensively with the Toronto Raptors. Built up such a good resume that a particular star player didn't want the former coach, but he wanted pretty much the chief assistant. That guy would be one Adrian Griffin. So Adrian Griffin's dismissal likely signals more moves for the Milwaukee Bucks. So the rumbling out of Milwaukee persisted from assistant coach Terry Stott's departure before the season even began through the Bucks' shortcomings during the in-season tournament. First-year head coach Adrian Griffin's tenure was off to a tumultuous start. Come Tuesday, Milwaukee dismissed Griffin, even with a 30-13 record, even with the second-ranked offense in the entire NBA. The Bucks' porous defense and, more importantly, the confusion and disconnect among Milwaukee's players and staffers about the team's schematic approach, league sources told Yahoo Sports, all presented too critical an obstacle for the Bucks to overcome in such a crucial season with no goal other than reclaiming the championship Milwaukee won with Giannis Antetokounmpo in 2021. Those are the lofty stakes that loom over this franchise. That led Milwaukee to part ways with head coach Mike Budenholzer, who guided Antetokounmpo's club to that precious title 3 years ago. After the Bucks floundered in the first round of last spring's postseason, that ultimate aspiration is the current that swiftly pushed Milwaukee to hire veteran coach Doc Rivers, according to league sources, out of his seat in ESPN's broadcast booth. There is little time to spare for the Bucks to solidify a new voice in Milwaukee's locker room. On that note, since the Doc Rivers name has been brought up, because there was also talk that they brought him in to be a consultant for Adrian Griffin. Now you're pushing Adrian Griffin out the door and you bringing in the guy that's supposed to be his consultant. In my viewpoint, Doc Rivers basically backdoored his way into a job. Of course, there's other talk that this has been brewing for a month at least. There's a lot to unravel on this whole situation. Anyway, the Bucks are working under a more daunting clock this past offseason. Antetokounmpo had yet to sign his 3-year, $186 million contract extension in October, and Milwaukee afforded their MVP candidate with real influence over determining Budenholzer's replacement, sources said. Antetokounmpo did not want former Raptors head coach Nick Nurse, league sources told Yahoo Sports. He wanted Griffin. Let me emphasize that again. He wanted Griffin, Nurse's chief assistant coach in Toronto. Griffin had been credited for helping oversee Nurse and the Raptors' creative defensive schemes. With Griffin billed as both a former player who could command the Bucks' locker room and a coach in mind who could bring exotic, malleable defense that Budenholzer would never utilize during daunting playoff matches. That clock still kept ticking quietly in the background. That is how the modern NBA turns when all-stars can request a trade without warning and rival executives are more eager than ever to whisper about the chances said talent will become available for the taking. As much as league personnel have speculated about Donovan Mitchell's potential exit from Cleveland, there remain hopeful team staffers who repeatedly mention the Bucks' pressure to deliver Antetokounmpo the contending opportunity he craves, lest he join the fabled ranks of players who changed franchises. Well, you know, the most famous person who went from Milwaukee, landed in LA, and had a devastating skyhook and won multiple championships with a team aptly nicknamed Showtime. No, that's just Dave. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that is his next move. I'm not saying it. To me, Antetokounmpo does not seem wound like that to want to hop from this team to that team to win championships, especially knowing that he's won one in Milwaukee and believes that it can be done again with the right pieces. Anyway, Griffin spent quite a while as a leading coaching candidate around the league. He was a finalist and impressed Sam Hinkie way back during the Sixers' 2013 search. Sources said a full decade before Griffin received his chance to man an NBA sideline with the Bucks. Still, here's the part you have to understand right here. Still, Milwaukee trading for Damian Lillard only further complicated the task at hand, amplifying the pressures of leading a team with these towering expectations in Griffin's first stab at the job. Lillard is as dangerous a scorer as there is, but also a former franchise face who would always be facing a significant acclimation process slotting next to another alpha such as Antetokounmpo. And that's before you consider a Milwaukee roster that features a deep group of veteran players from Brook Lopez to Bobby Portis, who all hold considerable voices. It's clear Griffin never found a formula capable of balancing every aspect and personality within this equation. For Budenholzer's fault, he clearly established an identity and playing style in Milwaukee that Griffin was never able to solidify. You can read plenty across the internet about struggling defense, a major decline from the Bucks' calling card under Budenholzer. There was an expected drop-off from Drew Holiday to Lillard in terms of perimeter peskiness, to the point it may have even overshadowed the further deficiencies in Milwaukee's defensive lineup and have come with swapping Grayson Allen for Malik Beasley. Allen has played so well in Phoenix as part of the three-team mega deal that landed Lillard in Milwaukee. The Suns are no longer considering him for a trade prior to next month's deadline, according to league sources. There's an argument to be made the Bucks roster would have been susceptible to these shortcomings guarding opponents in the league's current scoring frenzy, regardless of Griffin's strategy or effectiveness. The defense continued to struggle in January, with Milwaukee just 6-5, certainly influenced the timing of this change on the bench. But the Bucks' quick approach to bring in Rivers also afforded Milwaukee 2 full weeks to reevaluate this group before the February 8th trade deadline, as league-wide chatter has started to include far more about the Bucks' recent activity. Milwaukee is exploring a range of options to improve its perimeter defense, league sources told Yahoo Sports. Milwaukee has contacted various teams about what it could return with the second-round pick it will receive from Portland, sources said, which currently stands as number 35 in the 2024 NBA Draft. There are some front office figures who view that type of selection as more valuable than or the equivalent of a late first-rounder because the pick isn't bound to a rookie scale and carries lower tax implications. New York, as the recent example, dealt Detroit's 2024 second-round pick, projected as the number 31 pick, to Toronto as part of its package for OG Anunoby, in lieu of sending any true first-round capital to the Raptors. With their early second, the Bucks are considering different combinations of trades that could move veteran wing Pat Connaughton plus a reserve guard, Cameron Payne, sources said, to help fortify Milwaukee's defensive rotation. Payne fell out of Griffin's rotation, and Milwaukee's change on the bench could feasibly change his playing time, thus the Bucks' position about his quick candidacy. Yet, if Payne's circumstances don't improve, then it could appear to veteran ball handler would also be amendable to a new situation, sources said, where he could reclaim another chance at helping a bench unit compete for a championship. The combined $12.5 million salary between Connaughton and Payne would put Milwaukee in position to land several targets, such as Portland wing Matisse Thybulle and Clippers forward P.J. Tucker, sources said. Alex Caruso would make a dream outcome for the Bucks, but Chicago has indicated the Bulls will need multiple first-round picks to even consider parting with Caruso, according to league sources, if Chicago even truly considers moving him at all. Then there are the loftier targets, including Dejounte Murray and Bruce Brown Jr., sources said. For Milwaukee to get into the salary ballpark for either difference maker, the Bucks would have to include Portis and his $11.7 million figure. This sequence of options is quite illustrative of how many front offices approach the deadline. Milwaukee is assessing the names who are on the market, their team's asking price, and how that player fits alongside Antetokounmpo and Lillard. A deal highlighted by the number 35 pick probably isn't going to strike Atlanta's fancy for Murray, considering the Hawks at present are searching for a pair of first-round picks plus a starting-level player for their all-star combo guard, league sources told Yahoo Sports. The Raptors have posted an initial price point of a first-round selection for Brown, sources said, after Toronto acquired the veteran as part of its return for Pascal Siakam. But Brown's contract, a 2-year $45 million balloon payment with a team option for the 2024-25 season, is expected to dissuade several suitors from sacrificing that level of draft pick when Brown is considered a lower market player than his salary. For that, Brown appears to be a much stronger possibility for Milwaukee than Murray. Another player in this salary game, Detroit's Bojan Bogdanovic, was a known target for the Bucks prior to last year's trade deadline, sources said. Milwaukee is gearing to do something. Firing Griffin is not the end of this line. The Bucks have been nothing if not opportunistic under general manager John Horst, whether that's changing pick protections from a previous move to steal Tucker back at the 2021 trade deadline or the team's surprise blockbuster to nab Lillard this fall. Horst's front office features loyal lieutenants who all speak with reverence of his creativity and acumen. Replacing Griffin with Rivers appears to be the first trick up his sleeve. What will come next? An attempt to deliver the real magic that keeps Antetokounmpo center stage. So there you have the news on the firing of one Adrian Griffin, who is being replaced by Doc Rivers. To which I say, even with hiring Doc Rivers, it doesn't guarantee you'll make it to the promised land. You might get on the outskirts, but it doesn't mean you'll make it in. But I'm going to talk more about that on the other side of this break, because when it comes to Doc Rivers, the person may be a good person during the regular season. He's a heck of a coach during the regular season, keeps his team in contention. But at best, outside of the championship he won in Boston, which I would say that was player generated by the big three, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, along with some others, Rajon Rondo. I believe had it not been for those players, Doc Rivers would have a ring as a coach. Which leads me to my next comparison. And we have to get through this break. Doc Rivers, at best, I compare him to baseball's version, Barry Bonds. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll tell you what. Come back on the other side of this break, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. You are in the zone with Anthony on a Wednesday. Once again, happy heavenly birthday to my dad, the late Pastor Luther E. Smith Jr. Welcome back in the zone. Yours truly, Anthony Smith, Wednesday. And there is, like I said, a lot that has taken place. And first of all, once again, I want to say thank you for all those who are listening. I wouldn't be where I'm at without you. Thank you for your listenership. And those of you who haven't followed, go ahead and follow. I'm on Spotify, I'm on iHeartRadio. Add me to your favorites. I appreciate it. Share this podcast. In that first segment, though, we was talking about Adrian Griffin pretty much, and how Milwaukee parted ways and what Milwaukee is looking for. So the Bucks hired Doc Rivers as head coach with hopes that he can lead them to a championship. If I can say it like this, Barry Bonds put up gaudy numbers during the regular season. Barry Bonds, 73 home runs, whether you think the record is tainted. At the end of the day, whatever you think he was on, it had nothing to do with hand-eye coordination. But that's not what this podcast is about. I'm drawing comparisons because Barry Bonds could put up some astronomical numbers during the regular season. But come playoff time, he disappeared. And it could be that baseball is also like football, not as fast, but they say in the NFL there are 4 speeds. There's the preseason speed. Then there's the regular season speed. That's let you know that, all right, these games are for real. Then there's the postseason speed, something my beloved Dallas Cowboys have yet to figure out. And if you're one of the final 2 teams that make it, then there's the Super Bowl speed. Check it. Pre, reg, postseason, Super Bowl. It's 4 different speeds. So maybe in baseball, while Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds was having their home run derby contest and making the world stop and making baseball watchable, maybe he forgot that, hey, I also have to play in the postseason and help this team get to the World Series. So there it is with Doc Rivers. And you know his track record. Coach of teams that have blown more 3-1 leads than anyone can imagine. And that's what I'm going to say. Had it not been for the big 3 plus what he had in Boston, I doubt very seriously if he'd have a championship ring as a coach. I seriously believe that. Now, I may be wrong, but how many exits did those Clippers teams make, and they were the favorites? Then you move on from the Clippers to Philadelphia, a different shade of blue. The outcome is still the same. You had Ben Simmons meltdown, words were spoken. Ben Simmons hasn't been the same. Doc Rivers was out of coaching for a couple of years. All I'm saying is, in the regular season, he doesn't get it done. And I know it's something like I'm talking about him like we talk about quarterbacks. I know the players have to play the game, but the coach also has to coach them up. I know we talk about the quarterback in the NFL, but at the end of the day, they're still 11 on 11. It shouldn't be about that one man, but it is. Same way it is when it comes to the NBA and certain coaches. So now I ask this question before we get into things here. With Doc Rivers, what have you done for me lately? Because what you've done in Boston really doesn't matter. It's what can you do right now. And for Milwaukee, if bringing him in and he doesn't deliver you to the promised land and hoist up the trophy, how long before you're ready to move off of Doc Rivers? Anyway, the Milwaukee Bucks hired Rivers as their head coach after firing Adrian Griffin. Rivers takes over a 30-13 Bucks team sitting 3.5 games behind the Boston Celtics in second place in the Eastern Conference. The Bucks hire Rivers with their sights squarely set on a second NBA championship in 4 seasons. Milwaukee stunned the NBA by dismissing Adrian Griffin Tuesday amid the 30-13 start. Griffin took over this season for the fired Mike Budenholzer, who was fired last offseason after the top-seeded Bucks fell in the first round of the playoffs to the Miami Heat. Now, I'm just going to tell you something right there. The way Miami was playing all the way up to the finals, I don't think nobody was going to beat Miami anyway. They just happened to run into a more formidable Denver Nuggets team in the finals that was pretty much the total package. It wasn't reliant on one player, even though they have a player that is their star player. General Manager John Horst declined to elaborate on why Griffin was fired in a brief statement announcing the decision, but a decline on defense and in analytic measures may have convinced Milwaukee brass that Griffin wasn't the man to lead the Bucks to a championship. And of course, you heard in that first segment of mine, when you trade away key components, it's not Griffin's fault that you trade away your best defensive player. That goes back up to management. A Bucks team that built a strong defense identity centered around two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo and the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year finalist Brook Lopez has fallen to 22nd in the NBA in defensive rating halfway through the season. The departure of five-time All-Defensive Team guard Drew Holiday in the deal to acquire Damian Lillard has not helped on that end of the floor. So now we lead to this next question. Is Rivers the man to guide Milwaukee to a title? The Bucks apparently believe that Rivers is the man to rebuild that identity and guide them to a title. He's done so before with the Boston Celtics, but that was in 2008. Since leaving the Celtics in 2013, Rivers has failed to advance the Los Angeles Clippers and Philadelphia 76ers teams with rosters built to contend for a championship beyond the second round of the playoffs. The 76ers fired Rivers last May after three straight second-round exits with a roster featuring five-time All-NBA center and then freshly crowned MVP Joel Embiid. His dismissal marked the end of a 24 consecutive year tenure as an NBA coach, including stints with the Orlando Magic, Celtics, Clippers, and 76ers. For the first time since 1999, Rivers was not a head coach. He didn't leave basketball. Rivers took a job as a broadcast analyst on ESPN's number one TV team alongside Mike Breen and Doris Burke. He also took on a role as a consultant to Griffin in December, according to the Athletic's Shams Charania. This role was at the behest of the Bucks, according to the report, and apparently paved the way to his new full-time job. After a half-season absence, Rivers is back on an NBA sideline, again at the helm of a team built to fight the championship. Will he deliver? I have to throw that out there. Do you think he will deliver? What is it that convinces you to think that things are going to be different? Yes, you have a named alpha male, alpha dog as your star player. You have a coach with a known name, a coach who has won a championship. I mean, if I want to take a step farther, yes, I am a Dallas Cowboy fan. We bring in Mike McCarthy based on the one Super Bowl that he won with Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Did he actually win it, or did the team win the Super Bowl in spite of him? As a Dallas fan, 12-5 regular season record looks good. The first round exits, not so good. Milwaukee, I hope you're making the right move for the sake of Giannis Antetokounmpo. I really do. I hope this was the right move. I really hope that he can deliver another trophy for you guys. But I also have my doubts that it can be done. I mean, the East looks pretty good. I mean, you got Milwaukee, you got Boston. Throw Philadelphia in there as well, too. Who's to say they don't run against Philadelphia in the early rounds and get ousted? Are you going to be calling for change at the top again, namely at the head coaching position? Or are you going to be like, well, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt because you came in almost halfway through the season, so that's not fair that you didn't get to get in on preseason training camp. I mean, I can right now, if they don't make it to the finals, and like I said, just make it to the finals, this will be the one time where Doc Rivers probably gets a free pass, at least from the Milwaukee Bucks, based on the narrative I laid out there for you. That's right. You weren't in from the beginning of the season. You were on the broadcast booth with the number one team. So we get it. But who's to say that you come in, get in the full training camp, next year is all yours if you don't deliver? In other words, how long of a leash does Doc Rivers have? And can he, if not this year, can he bring it home next year? That remains to be seen. So I tell you what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to shift around and I'm going to take another break. But don't you go nowhere. Stay locked in the zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. I'll be right back after a word from my sponsor. Welcome back to In the Zone. So in the first couple of segments, we talked about Milwaukee getting rid of Adrian Griffin. Milwaukee bringing in Doc Rivers. Is Doc Rivers the answer? Well, if you are a follower of America's team, love or hate, because there's really no in-between when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, there appears that everybody wants Dak Prescott out of Dallas. Or, if you can't get Dak out of Dallas, get some people out of Dallas. CeeDee Lamb's mom, for instance, said Dak isn't it. He needs to go, or I would like to see my son playing where they have a quarterback. She wants to see her son playing in Houston. So while a lot of the talk has been centered around CeeDee Lamb's mom and some other people, there's one headline that says it like this: I want Dak out of Dallas. Prescott's brother, done with Cowboys drama. I want Dak out of Dallas. And Prescott's brother reveals he's done with the Cowboys drama. So, let's see how this plays out. And now it is a weekend hat trick as Dak Prescott's brother has joined the chorus of family members of Dallas Cowboy players who want out of the America's team experience. Cowboy fans who continue to DM me, trust me, said Tad Prescott on social media Saturday, if I could get Dak to leave Dallas, I would. Tad's voice echoes that of CeeDee Lamb's mom, who is now on social media record as saying the Cowboys' problem is Dak, and that either he that either the QBs, a blank, should be shipped out of town or her son should be allowed to escape. Mom, by the way, would like CD traded to her hometown, Houston, Texas, so he can play with CJ Stroud. Wow. I have to admit, that sounds like a pretty good formidable tandem. That is until you look at the numbers that Dak put up, only 9 interceptions. He said he wasn't going to throw 10 interceptions all season. Guess what? He delivered on that promise. And this by far was CeeDee Lamb's best year playing with Dak. So, I know it's about championships, but the Texans haven't won one either. And may I say, even if they were to get a CeeDee Lamb, that's not a guarantee that that's the final piece. But anyway, that was a little side note there. And Dak and CD teammate Micah Parsons, his brother Terrence, also thinks the Cowboys' issues are simply too much to bear. So he wants Dak and the coaching staff ousted. Of course, that's not happening because Jerry Jones has decided he's going to retain Mike McCarthy. However, he's on trial again next year. And probably next year. And probably the next year. All he has to do is keep posting 12-5 records. And he'll be back. The play of Prescott, Lamb, and Parsons is subject to public scrutiny. That is part of their job. Their supportive relatives' failures to comprehend that is mystifying, especially because when the Cowboys are riding high, these very same relatives refer to the Cowboys as us and we. But in the wake of a playoff loss, everybody wants out. Or better said, everybody's mother and brother wants out. Lamb's mom and especially Parsons' brother are insisting they have problems with the Cowboys themselves. Terrence Parsons says the organization has committed crimes against Micah. In Tad's case, he makes it clear that this time around, he's not mad at the Cowboys, though he has certainly expressed that view in the past. The city and organization have been great to he and our family, but, he said, done with drama and the so-called fans. But he loves this team and wants to bring it a ring. The Cowboys' irony here. CD's mom, Micah's brother, and Dak's brother might all be tired of the drama, while somehow failing to recognize they are the ones creating the drama. So weigh in and tell me, what do you think? Who is the problem? Is it the quarterback? Is it the coach? Because as beast mode as Micah Parsons was, only 2 tackles against the Packers. No quarterback pressures. Yes, Dak threw 2 picks, one resulting in a pick 6. But Dak didn't give up all those points. Dak had his flaws. So yes, Dak don't get no free pass. I'm not going to say Dak sucked. But I'm going to say in that game he sucked. Because why? He said he sucked. So if he said he sucked, I can say he sucked. But a whole lot of other players also sucked. The defense couldn't stop running water, let alone a nosebleed. Granted, the offense tried to do their part late, but it was too little too late because she had to overcome such an insurmountable lead to whereas you guys played so poorly that the final score wasn't even indicative of how poor you played. The yards that you got was out of desperation. I love going into chat rooms because I get to see how one-sided and how narrow-minded people really are. I've even shared my little 2 cents, to which I'll probably share the link to this podcast so people can hear it. And I get the narrative. The quarterbacks, in most cases, are the ones getting the big time paychecks. Dak is about to get his extension. They're also going to have to pay Micah Parsons. They're also going to have to pay CeeDee Lamb. That's going to take up a good chunk of your money based on the salary cap. But even though the quarterback is the one getting the bulk of the money and the bulk of the blame, all of the blame doesn't go on the quarterback. One thing is certain about being a Dallas Cowboy, especially if you're a quarterback. Outside of being the center fielder for the New York Yankees, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys is the most scrutinized position in all sports. All. You don't hear this talk going on about other teams' quarterback. You don't hear, well, Buffalo Bills fans, they can be kind of rowdy because I was in one of their chat rooms just briefly looking at some of the comments when Buffalo looked like they weren't going to even make the playoffs. One fan referred to Josh Allen as the white Dak Prescott. Talk about brutal. I mean, it doesn't get no more brutal than that to refer to Josh Allen as the white Dak Prescott. And the reason I say that's brutal because if you see some of the comments in the Dak Prescott versus Tony Romo chat room, then you would understand exactly where I'm coming from when I say that was brutal. Anyway, there is still a lot more to unravel. So what I'm going to do right here, I am going to take one more break. And when I come back, I'm going to put a bow on this show. So don't you go nowhere. When I come back, we'll wrap things up here in the zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. Welcome back to In the Zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. And like I said, when we come back, we're going to put a bow on things. Don't know how many bows we're going to put on the end of this. We're going to put some bows on this. There's one guy who has built up quite an impressive resume. 302 regular season victories, 31 playoff victories. His 20 double-digit win season. His 17 division titles, his 9 Super Bowl appearances, and 6 Vince Lombardi Trophies don't need to be bullet pointed and uploaded on ZipRecruiter. Or maybe they do. What are we talking about? Talking about why is almost no team interested in Bill Belichick. You're right. Why is no team interested in Bill Belichick? Do I need to run back down to that again? Well, I'm going to do it anyway. It says, presumably, Bill Belichick didn't work on a resume after he parted ways with New England earlier this month. Of course, you heard his credentials there. 7 NFL teams, not including New England, had or still have an opening for a head coach. Atlanta, Carolina, Las Vegas, the Los Angeles Chargers, Seattle, Tennessee, and Washington. At least 5 more had to have had some kind of serious discussion about making a move. Chicago, Dallas, both New York teams, and Philadelphia. Thus far, only one, Atlanta, has bothered to formally interview arguably the greatest and most accomplished coach in NFL history. The same bafflement extends to the currently unemployed Pete Carroll, who has 9 double-digit win seasons and a Super Bowl title himself. But apparently no team is asking if he'd like to chat. Snoop Dogg, of all people, said Carroll was trying to push for the Chargers job. That's all we heard, though. With Belichick, perhaps there were informal test the water inquiries. He isn't running to social media, face mask, or whatever his dad joke is. Okay, I get that. Face mask. I get that. Now, here's what he actually called it. He called it Snapbook and Face Chat. So with Belichick, perhaps there were informal test the water inquiries. He isn't running around the social media, face mask, or whatever his dad joke is, to post updates. However, NFL teams tend to announce whom they have interviewed, and other than the Falcons, who have spoken to Belichick twice, it has been crickets. How is this possible? Is there no country for old men? There is no way Belichick doesn't get hired somewhere, right? Did NFL team owners fall for the ridiculous argument more later that it was all Tom Brady in New England? Or are team presidents and general managers terrified of bringing in a bigger star and more forceful personality? Does Belichick need to go work a season on Sean McVay's staff to become cool again? Look, maybe Belichick isn't your guy. Maybe you have concerns about his age, 72 next season. Same for the 72-year-old Carroll. Maybe it's too recent to look past seasons 4-13 Patriots. Maybe you just hated the guy when he was ruling the league and routinely beating everyone. So what? Who else on the market ever ruled the league and routinely beat everyone? Give Atlanta credit. Belichick delivered the most crushing defeat in Falcons history, roaring back from a 28-3 deficit in Super Bowl. Falcons owner Arthur Blank isn't holding it against him. If you couldn't beat him, at least consider hiring him. In a sign of how strange this all is, Dan Quinn, the current Cowboys defensive coordinator and then Atlanta head coach who blew that Super Bowl to Belichick Patriots, has interviewed with the Chargers and Commanders, and per numerous media reports, is scheduled to talk with Carolina and Seattle. Make that make sense. No team has to hire Bill Belichick. It's not like he's infallible or without criticism or above pointed questions. Maybe he's not the proper fit. Maybe he'll fail. There's never a guarantee, but for almost no one to even want to speak with him, even if Belichick was brought in for a fake interview, you know you are hiring someone else. It could prove invaluable. Have you ever heard this guy talk about football, coaching, strategy, leadership, motivation, team building, and so on? Have you seen his NFL Network appearance? Fortune 500 companies pay six figures for 45 minutes in the hope that he inspires the sales force to move more medical devices or life insurance plans. You have an actual professional football franchise and can get him for an entire day with the freedom to ask anything. Heck, Just have him sit around and tell old Bill Parcells and Lawrence Taylor stories from his days defensive coordinating the New York Giants to 2 Super Bowls. You got a better afternoon plan? Yes, New England was terrible last season. Yes, Belichick's inability to find a viable quarterback after Brady left, let alone wide receivers and other skilled players, doomed him. But to run that into proof that the Patriots' 2 decades of excellence were solely the work of Brady is absurd. That's cheap talk show stuff. They were a pair. Just like all great coaches and quarterbacks. Brady didn't run those epic New England defenses. Brady didn't rework the offense around different roster sets. A small slot receiver era, a 2 tight end era, a Randy Moss era, etc. Brady didn't have Malcolm Butler prepared to jump the route. Brady didn't change the game. Didn't change the way the game is played with aggressiveness on 4th down. The concept of the middle 8 minutes or so on and so on. Year after year, New England was the smartest, best coach, and most sound team in the league. Yeah, the Patriots had Tom Brady. They also had Bill Belichick. So why doesn't anyone want to at least interview him? Why is that? Things that make you go, Well, tell you what I'm going to do. This is going to do it for In the Zone with Anthony. And I hope you have enjoyed every minute and every second of today's podcast. Once again, I want to send a heavenly birthday shout out to my dad, the late Pastor Luther E. Smith Jr., born in Redbird, Oklahoma on this day, January 24th, 1934, to my grandparents, Luther E. and Idella Smith. He was a great man. He was a great pastor in this city. A man that would literally take the shirt off his back for people. Just want to honor him and say, Dad, thank you for the legacy that you left behind. I know I'll probably never be able to fill those shoes, but the things that I am doing, I hope that I'm making you proud as you're looking down from above. I wish I had one of his sound bites queued up because I would definitely play it for you right here. It would be in the form of a sermon, but I do have his sermon podcast, so y'all can always get that because I always post everything on Facebook, Instagram. So, but yeah, I want to just honor my dad and just tell him thanks for the groundwork that he laid, and hope I could be half of what he was and be equally successful in my spiritual walk, in my married life, and in everything I endeavor to do, even on my job. So, Dad, thanks for all that you've imparted into me, knowledge and wisdom. Can't say enough. And what better day to do this podcast than on the day that is your day? So, on that note, I am getting ready to get out of here. Once again, hope you have enjoyed today's podcast. By all means, share it, like, whatever. Like I say, I'm on multiple platforms. This particular podcast platform is powered by iHeart, so you have the iHeart Radio app. Look up In the Zone with Anthony Smith on iHeart Radio. You can also see me on other platforms. I'm also now officially on Amazon as well. So, In the Zone is on Amazon. So, I've made it somewhere. I don't know how far I've made it, but I made it somewhere. And I can say this only because of all of you that take the time out to listen. I want to thank you, and I appreciate you. I applaud you. Until the next time, take care of yourself. Be blessed. Be a blessing. I'm out. Love you all.